Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Lecture 8 on Animal Kingdom. So, till now, we studied about the various characteristics of Animal Kingdom and we studied about various types, various phyla that are the part of Animal Kingdom that comes under the kingdom Animalia. So, we learned about poriferans, right? We learned about coelentrates. We learned about ctenophores. We learned about platyhelminthes. We learned about helminthes, annelids, annelida, arthropoda, and mollusk. So in today's class, we will learn about the remaining two phyla that comes under the kingdom Animalia and that are invertebrates. Sorry, that are non-chordates. That is, they do not have vertebra. They are non-chordates. So we will learn about the phylum Echinodermata and the phylum Hemichordata. So in today's lecture, we will start firstly with the phylum Echinodermata, then we will go towards the Hemichordata. So if I start with the kingdom Animalia, we know that the organisms that belong to this kingdom are multicellular, they are heterotrophic, that is, they cannot make their own food, they are dependent on others for their food. Right? So this is the basic characteristic. They lack cell wall. This is also one of the characteristics. They lack cell wall. Unlike the organisms of kingdom fungi or kingdom plantae. So they lack cell wall. Then they have either the cellular level of organization, as we see in case of poriferans, which have cellular level of organization, or they have either organ or organ system level of organization, as we see in the remaining other phyla. Then on the basis of symmetry, as I mentioned, they were divided into two types, radial and bilateral. And then on the basis of the presence or absence of the body cavity, the organisms can be further divided as acoelomates that lack the body cavity, pseudocoelomates that have the false body cavity, and the coelomates which are that have the true coelom, that is the true body cavity. So we learned about phylum Annelida, phylum Arthropoda, and phylum Mollusk that are coelomates and that have bilateral symmetry, organ system level of organization, and belong to kingdom Animalia. Now in today's lecture, we will learn about next phyla, which is the phylum Echinodermata and phylum Hemichordata. With this, we will finish the non-chordate part. So all these are the non-chordate part. So with this, we will finish the non-chordates. And then from the next lecture, we will start with the next phyla, which is the chordate. So we will learn the differences, what are the differences between the non-chordates and chordates. But for now, till now, what we have learned are the characteristics mostly of the non-chordates. So the organisms that belong to phylum Porifera, coelentrate, ctenophore, platyhelminthes, helminthes, annelids, arthropods, mollusks, Echinodermata, Hemichordata are the non-chordates. That lacks the notochord. The basic character is that they lack the notochord. So that is why they are called as non-chordate, because they lack the notochord. While in chordates, a notochord-like structure that you will see what is notochord. Notochord is present. So in today's lecture, what we will learn is the organisms that belong to kingdom Animalia have organ system level of organization, have bilateral symmetry, which have true coelom, that is, they are coelomates, and belongs to phylum Echinodermata and Hemichordata. So firstly, we will start with the phylum Echinodermata. So what is the origin of this word? So echinoderms or the Echinodermata means the phylum is Echinodermata, organisms are echinoderms. In the Greek, echinos means spiny and derma means skin. So that is, they have spiny skin. That is, on their skin part, they have spine-like structures. So their skin is not smooth, but instead they have spiny skin. They are primarily bottom dwelling marine animals. So all the echinoderms are the marine animals, and most of them, or basically we can say that they are bottom dwelling. That is, they dwells in the bottom of the marine or the ocean. They range in size from brittle stars, which can be less than 1 centimeter in length, to giant sea cucumbers that can be over 2 meters long. The most striking feature of echinoderms is their 5-pointed radial symmetry. So, one of the very common example is the starfish. So, this, for example, is a starfish, and the most striking feature is that they have a 5-pointed radial symmetry. So instead, they have 5 points, but still they have a radial symmetry. The body is oriented in such a way that they have the radial symmetry. One of the very important thing that we need to remember here is that echinoderms are radially symmetrical as adults, but their larvae are free swimming filter feeders with bilateral symmetry. So there is a difference here. That the adults, so if I talk about the symmetry in echinoderms, so in the adult stage they are different, and in the larval stage the symmetry is different. So in the adult stage the organisms are radially symmetrical, while in the larval stage the organisms are bilaterally symmetrical. So this is an important feature of echinoderms, because if you are asked in the exam about the symmetry in echinoderms, and if they talk exclusively about the adults, then you have to tick mark the radial symmetry. And if they talk about the larva, then you have to check for the bilateral symmetry. So echinoderms, and in case if nothing is asked, then we can see from the figure that it comes under the bilateral symmetry. They have considered the symmetry of larva. So the larvae are filter feeders with bilateral symmetry. That is, they have only one axis of symmetry. And in the adults, the striking feature is that although they have 5 arms, still they can have the radial symmetry. The body is oriented in such a way. Echinoderms, as I mentioned, they have an endoskeleton of spiny calcium-rich plates, which are called as ossicles. And most echinoderms are prickly, as I mentioned here, that they are spiny. They have a spiny skin. So most echinoderms are prickly from skeletal bumps and spines. So till now, what we were learning, that whatever phyla we have understood, they belongs to the protostomes. Now echinoderms and hemichordata, hemichordates, and the remaining, that is the chordates, are the deuterostomes. They all are deuterostomes. So deutero means anus first. Deutero means anus first and mouth second. So this is the echinoderms, chordates and hemichordates are the deuterostomes. What are the basic characteristics of deuterostomes? This we have discussed in the first class itself also, but I am repeating it here again because it is the important feature of echinoderms, hemichordates and chordates, what we are going to study from now. So in deuterostomes, the cleavage during the time of the development, it is the radial cleavage that happens. You can see this is the top view. This is the side view. So in this, the daughter cells, which are shown here in the blue color, sit right on the top of the previous cells. These are the old cells. So these blue color cells are the daughter cells. So the daughter cell sits on the top of the old cells or the previous cells. The fate of the cells is indeterminate. So what do we mean by indeterminate? Indeterminate means not fixed. So the fate of the cell is not fixed. So if I separate all these cells from each other, then each cell can individually grow to become a complete organism. While if I talk about the determinant, where the fate is determined, determinate, where the phase is determined. And then if I separate these cells, then the individual organism cannot be grown from these cells, as the fate of these cells is determined. That, for example, this cell is determined to become this cell is determined to become some particular, like maybe some cells of the heart. These cells are already determined to become some cells of the brain, etc. So they cannot, once they get separated, they cannot give rise to the individual organism. While in case of the cells where the fate is indeterminate, that is, if the cells are separated from one another, since the fate of the cells is not determined till now, they can completely form a new organism. Next important property of deuterostomes is that as the development proceeds, we know that a hollow sphere of cells, which is the blastula, is formed. So in this blastula, so this is the blastula, in this indentation has happened. It has led to a groove-like structure formation, and this is known as the blastopore. And the opening is called as the blastopore. So based on whether the opening is resulting into the anus formation or the mouth formation, they are called as protostomes or deuterostomes. Since the anus appears at or near the blastopore, you can see here the anus appears at or near the blastopore. Therefore, it is deuterostomes, because the second opening forms the mouth. While if this blastopore opening forms the mouth, it is called as the protostomes. That is mouth first, right? But in case of deuterostomes, this blastopore opening is resulting in the formation of anus. Therefore, the chordates, echinoderms, and hemichordates belong to the deuterostome category. Next, deuterostomes are true coelomates. So we know that they are true coelomates. In this, body cavity is formed by the mesoderm. So you can see here. So in deuterostomes, the body cavity or the coelom arise as a pair of mesodermal pouches. So you can see here, outpocketing happens. This mesodermal pouches get separated, and coelom forms by an outpocketing of the primitive gut. The pouches ultimately enlarge, and they enlarge until they meet and fuse. Therefore, the body cavity or the coelom is formed by the outpocketing of the primitive gut. You can see here. Right? In echinoderms, the digestive tract is complete with the mouth on the lower side. So if I talk about the echinoderms, there is another term which is used as oral side and the aboral side. Oral side is the one which is having the mouth, and the aboral side is the one which is opposite to the mouth. Right? So if I talk about in terms of dorsal and ventral, then aboral side is the dorsal side, upper side, and oral side is the ventral side. Mouth is present ventrally, and you can say it is present on the oral side. Incomplete digestive tract, for example, is found in the brittle star. Although in most of the echinoderms, the digestive tract is complete, but there are certain examples. For example, Ophiura, which is the brittle star, the digestive tract is incomplete. Respiration takes place by the body surface or the gills, called the dermal branchia or papillae in most echinoderms like starfish. The circulatory system is of reduced type and it is of open type. That is, the blood is directly bathing the organs. No heart or pumping vessel is present because the circulatory system, as I mentioned, is reduced as compared to the previous phyla. There is no excretory system. Nitrogenous waste ammonia diffuses out through the body surface. So the nitrogenous waste is ammonia. This is an it's easy for you to remember that in most of the marine animals, those that live in the surrounding the water, in those mostly the nitrogenous waste is ammonia, while in terrestrial it is mostly either urea or uric acid. So nitrogenous waste is ammonia. It diffuses out to the body surface. The nervous system is quite simple and less developed, and it just includes a nerve ring and a radial nerve with simple sense organ. They do not have any head or brain, so civilization is not there, kind of. Civilization is not there. Reproduction is sexual, sexes are separate, and they are unisexual, that is, they are dioecious. They require a male and a female for the reproduction. So male and female are separate. They are unisexual or dioecious, and the reproduction is sexual. Fertilization is usually external, so the sperms and eggs are released into the water, are released outside by the male and female respectively, and upon fusion, it leads to the formation of a fertilized egg. This fertilized egg develops into the larva, and which ultimately develops into the adult. So the larva is the bipinnarea larva. Few echinoderms have great power of regeneration. So if one of the arm breaks off for defense, so suppose if one of the arms breaks off during the defense, then this arm can itself generate or regenerate, and this phenomenon is called as autotomy. The phenomena of breaking of the arm for the defense purpose is called as autotomy. One of the very important, one of the very exciting characteristics of the echinoderms is evisceration. As the name suggests, visceration, evisceration. So sometimes echinoderms in anger condition or in a frightened state, they vomit out the viscera. So viscera is what? Internal organs, right? So they vomit out their internal organs in order to when they are in anger or in a frightened state. This phenomena is known as evisceration, where they vomit out the internal organs of their body. For example, this is done by holothuria. So these are the basic characteristics of echinoderms. Now we will see what is the most peculiar characteristics of echinoderm. So this water vascular system is unique to the echinoderm. This water vascular system is unique to the echinoderms, and it consists of a network of hydraulic canals branching into extensions called the tube feet. You can see here, if I see, so they are a network of canal, stone canal, for example, ring canal, then we have radial canal, that ultimately terminates into the tube feet. So this is that ultimately terminates into the tube feet, right? And this tube feet functions in the locomotion and the feeding. So what is how the water canal system is helping that? The water enters this system through the aboral side, or we can say through the dorsal side. The water enters through the aboral side, called the sieve plate or the madreporite. So from this, the water enters. The water enters through the sieve plate or through the madreporite. After this, it passes through the stone canal. So water once enter into this, it passes through the stone canal here. So this is the stone canal. From here, it passes to a ring canal, which is a ring-like structure. And once it reaches to which is a central disc in the center, and then once it reaches into this, passes to all the radial canals. So from madreporite, which is the sieve plate or the sieve-like structure, the water enters into the stone canal, then into the ring canal, and then the radial canal, which are radiated in the different directions. So from the radial canal, you can see that there are many lateral canals also. So this is the radial canal. These are the various lateral canals. So from the radial canal, various lateral canals are connected. So from the radial canals, many lateral canals extend into the tube feet, each of which has an ampulla. So you can see here, this is a lateral canal and this is the ampulla. If I draw the zoomed image of tube feet. So if I zoomed this structure, it will be something like, fine, so this is the ampulla. Ampulla is anything which is like bulb-like structure, bulged. So in biology, usually such structures are termed as ampulla. So now the contraction and expansion of this ampulla forces the water into and out of the tube feet, thereby providing the suction pressure in order allowing the organism to adhere to the substrate or in the movement. So contraction of an ampulla forces water into the tube feet. So once the ampulla contracts, the water rushes into the tube feet, expanding it. Once the water enters, obviously it expands. When the foot touches the surface, the center is withdrawn because it is a suction which has been provided. So giving it a suction so that it can adhere to the surface. Now, by altering the expansion and the contraction of the tube feet, our C star moves slowly along. Fine. So once the tube feet is extended, it provides a suction, allowing the adherence of the organism echinoderm to the substrate. And once it needs to move, it undergoes the contraction. So the expansion and the contraction of the tube feet provides the movement of the helps in the locomotion. So this is a water vascular system that is a network of hydraulic canals from where the water enters into the madreporite, which is the C plate-like structure. From madreporite, it enters into the stone canal and then it goes to the ring canal. From there, it passes to all the 5 radial canals. The radial canals in turn are further connected to the tube feet, which has the lateral canals. So this is the basic anatomy of starfish or echinoderms. So I have taken the example of starfish. You can see here. So it has 5 amps, and this is the madreporite. If I zoomed into this structure, this is the madreporite, which is the sieve-like structure. So madreporite, water can flow in or out of the water vascular system into the surrounding water through the madreporite. So this is a zoomed in image of the madreporite, which is surrounded with the structure. The arm has the spines and the gills that allows for the respiration, spines that allows for the protection. Then the digestive system is short. A short digestive tract runs from the mouth, which is on the bottom or on the oral side of the central disc, of the anus on the top of the disc. On the top, you have anus, but on the other side, you will have the mouth. The surface of seawater is covered by spines that help defense against the predators, as well as by small gills that provide gaseous exchange. This is the surface morphology. Then I was talking about the ring canal. So this is the ring canal, which is connected to the madreporite internally. And through this, it is connected to the radial canal. So the water vascular system consists of ring canal in the central disc and 5 radial canals, each running in a groove down the entire length. So you can see it runs along the entire length. Branching from each radial canal are hundreds of, from this you can see from each radial canal there are hundreds of hollow muscular fluid filled structures which are called as tube feet. So this is the zoomed in image of the tube feet, where you can see this is the ampulla, this is the podium. So each tube feet consists of a bulb-like ampulla and a podium. So podium is the foot portion, ampulla is the bulb-like portion. When the ampulla squeezes, the water is forced into. So obviously once it squeezes, so if you will squeeze the ampulla, the water will come to the podium, which expands and contracts the substrate. Adhesive chemicals are secreted from the base of these podiums for de-adhesion. And similarly, once you want to detach the tube feet or tube foot, de-adhesive chemicals are secreted and muscles in the podium contract. So this contraction and the expansion of the muscles in the podium of the tube feet allows for the locomotion. Fine. And then central disc, I have already mentioned. The central disc has a nerve ring and the nerve cords radiating from the ring into the arms. The digestive glands are present in each of the arms that secretes the digestive juices and aids in the absorption and storage of nutrients. So this is the basic morphology or anatomy of the starfish, or you can say the basic anatomy of the gynoderms, considering starfish as an example. So this is in the details about the larval stage and the adult stage. So you can see that the larva, which is the sea star larva here, so it is having the bilateral symmetry. You can divide this into two halves only from this axis. While the adults can be divided into half, they are pentaradial. They have a pentaradial symmetry. The sea star larva moves through the water by beating its cilia. So it is cilia. And it is free. It is swim, like it swims. Unlike the adult. Fine. So each arm has a full. So if I talk about the adults, this is the madreporite, as I mentioned. Gonad is present in each of the arm. Each arm has a tube feet. This is the radial canals, and the mouth is on the oral surface facing the sea floor. So the other surface, which is on the bottom, which is the ventral surface, is the oral surface where the mouth is present. Fine. What I want to show you here is this. So this is one of the arms. So if you take a cross section of this, it will have the skin gills. It will have the coelom, body cavity. Then each arm will have the digestive glands and the gonads. Then they will have ampulla and the podium, which is the suction pump, and the water canal. So this is present in each of the canal. Right? So this is what the basic anatomy of the gynoderms looks like. Now the gynoderms can be divided into 5 different clades, the classes. So the first one is the asteroidae, which is the sea stars and the sea daisies. So sea stars have arms radiating from a central disk. So whatever we see here is an example of a sea star from where the arms expand from the central disk. The undersurfaces of the arms bear the tube feet. The tube feet can attach or help the detachment from a substrate by combining the muscular and chemical actions. So the muscular actions includes the contraction and relaxation. The chemical reaction includes the release of chemicals. Release of chemicals, adhesive and de-adhesive chemicals. Adhesive and de-adhesive chemicals. Right? The sea star adheres firmly to the rocks, or it creeps along slowly as its tube feet extend, grip, release, extend, and grip again. Right? So this is how it moves. Although the base of the tube feet has a flattened disc that resembles a suction pump, the gripping action results from the adhesive chemicals, not the suction. The gripping is not because of the suction only, but it is because of the adhesive chemicals. So what I have mentioned here, that it is a combination of both muscular and chemical actions. The chemical actions play more important role in the adhesion. Sea stars also use their tube feet to grasp the prey. So this helps in the feeding also, basically, in catching the prey. Fine. Example includes sea star. The next is the Ophiuridae, which includes brittle stars. So brittle stars have a distinct central disc and long flexible arms. So the central disc is different from the sea stars. They move primarily by lashing their arms in the serpentine movement. So they move like a snake-like movement they have. So they lash their arms in the serpentine movement, and that helps in their locomotion. The base of the brittle star, tube feet lacks the flattened disc around, which is found in the sea stars, but does secrete the adhesive chemicals. So base of this does not have this suction-like structure, that is, does not have the podium, right? But it has chemicals. So with the help of these chemicals, it adheres to the surface. Hence, like sea stars and other echinoderms, brittle stars can use their tube feet to grip the substrates by using the adhesive chemicals, which is released by the tube feet. Right? Some species are suspension feeders, others are predators or scavengers. Example include a brittle star. Fine. The next is the echinoidea. So it includes sea urchins. Sea urchins and sand dollars have no arms. You can see here they do not have any arms, but they do have 5 rows of tube feet that function in slow movement. So this is the 5 rows of tube feet, although they do not have any arms, just like unlike the starfish or the brittle star. So they do have 5 rows of tube feet that function in slow movement. They also have muscles that pivot their long spines, which aid in the locomotion as well as in the protection. So the mouth of sea urchin is fringed by highly complex jaw-like structures that are well adapted for eating the seaweeds. So they have a jaw-like structure which is highly adapted for eating the seaweeds. They are roughly spherical, whereas sand dollars are the flat disc. So if I talk about the sea urchins, they are roughly spherical. Sand dollars are the flat disc. So this is a sea urchin which has been shown in this figure. It is spherical in structure, and unlike the previous one, that is the Ophiuridia and Asteroidea, it lacks the arms. It does not have the arms. Arms are absent, but the tube feet is present that helps in the locomotion, as well as they have the muscles that pivot their long spines that therefore helps in the locomotion as well as in the protection. So this was about the gynoidea. The next is the crinoidea. That includes sea lilies and feather stars. So sea lilies have attached to the substrate by a stalk. Feather star crawl about by using their long flexible arms. So this is a feather star which has been shown here. It has long flexible arms. You can see here. It has long flexible arms, right? Both, that is sea lilies and the feather stars, uses their arms in suspension feeding. So they perform suspension feeding. The arms encircle around the mouth, so which is diverted upward away from the substrate. Crinoidea is an ancient group whose morphology has changed little over the course of evolution. Fossil, if like they have changed very little during the course of evolution. If I talk about 500 million years old fossil of Crinoidea, they are extremely similar to the present day members of this clade. So therefore, they have changed very less during the course of evolution. The next is the Holothuridia. So it includes the sea cucumbers. You can see the figure also. It resembles a cucumber-like structure. As I mentioned, they can be around 2 meters long as well. On casual inspection, it does not look much like other echinoderms, as it does not have arms or anything. They lack spines and their endoskeleton is much reduced. However, they are also elongated in their oral aboral axis, giving them the shape of which they are named and further distinguishing their relationship, disguising their relationship to sea stars and sea urchins. So basically, they do not have the more elongated arms. They have elongated oral aboral axis. So their oral aboral axis is elongated. In close inspection, it is difficult to say that these belong to echinoderms, but the closer examination, in casual inspection, it is difficult to say, but in closer examination, it is revealed that they have 5 rows of the tube feet, just like the other echinoderms. So they do have so tube feet is present, 5 rows of tube feet, 5 rows of tube feet is present. That is, they have the 5 rows of the tube feet, and some tube feet are found around the mouth are developed as feeding tentacles. So basically, the tube feet is helping in catching the prey or food, whatever the food is, and therefore they served as the feeding tentacles. So these are the 5 different classes. That is the Holothuridia, that includes sea cucumber, which is Holothuria. Cynodia, that includes sea lilies and feather star. Echinodia, sea urchin. Ophirodia, brittle star, and Asteroidia, starfish. So these are examples of 5 different classes of the phylum Echinoderms. So these are the examples which are mentioned in the NCERT. You need to remember their scientific name as well as their common name. So the first one is the Asterias, which is a starfish that belongs. If you remember these classes, then you will be able to remember the examples also. So Asteroidia, so Asterias, which is the starfish. Second is Echinodia sea urchin, which is the echinus. Antedon, which is the sea lily. Cucumeria, sea cucumber, that belongs to Holothurodia. Ophuridae, brittle star, which is the Ophura. So these are the examples of different. These are different examples of phylum Echinodermata. So the basic characteristic and the most important characteristics is the presence of water vascular system. This is unique characteristic of the phylums of the organisms of phylum Echinodermata. Although different classes of these phylum have distinct structures in their water vascular system. So, like for example, in some you see that the central disc is different. Like for example, as I mentioned here, the central disc is different. It is little bit flattened. So it, like for example, in Ophuridae, they lack the flattened disc around, which is found in the sea star. So the structures may vary in terms of water vascular system, but they all have these tube feet like arrangement. That is why they are placed in the phylum Echinodermata. Also, they all have the spiny skin from which the name of the phylum has been originated. They have endoskeleton, which is made up of ossicles. So these are some of the very important distinguishing characteristic of this phylum. Examples, as I mentioned, I'll repeat again: Asterias, starfish; Echinus, sea urchin; Antedon, sea lily; Cucumeria, sea cucumber; and Ophura, brittle star. The next phyla that I will be talking about now is Hemichordata. So the name itself suggests Hemichordata. That is, hemi means half, right? So like echinoderms, hemichordates are also the member of deuterostome clade. That is, they have they have the characteristics of deuterostomes. In this, the anus appears first. That is, the anus is formed near the blastopore, and then the mouth appears second. Fine. The term hemichordata is from the Greek word hemi means half, chorde means string. So hemichordates share some traits with chordates such as gill slits and a dorsal nerve cord. This is important. How and why they are called as hemichordates? Because they share certain characteristics with chordates. For example, they have the gill slits and they have a dorsal nerve cord. In other, they have ventral nerve cord, right? But in this, they have a dorsal nerve cord. This is important. This phylum consists of a small group of worm-like animals with organ system level of organization. Mostly, you can divide this phylum into 3 classes: Enteropnista, Pterobranchia, and Plankstopteroidea. The largest group is the Enteropnista or the acorn worms. It is also called as acorn worms, for example, Balanoglossus. The Balanoglossus belongs to Enteropnista. Acorn worms are marine and generally they live buried in mud or under rocks. They may grow to more than 2 meter in length. So they can grow. An acorn worm can be 2 meter in length. They are bilaterally symmetrical. So the symmetry is bilateral. They are triploblastic and coelomate animals. They are bilaterally symmetrical. That is, if you see this example, you can divide this organism into 2 columns from this axis of symmetry. Fine. They are triploblastic. That is, they have 3 layers: ectoderm, mesoderm, endoderm. And since they are deuterostomes and coelomate animals, it is formed by the mesoderm and the outpocketing of the primitive gut. So it is formed by the outpocketing of the primitive gut. The body is cylindrical, as you can see in this figure. It is composed of an anterior part, which is the proboscis. Next part is the collar, and then we have the trunk region. Circulatory system is of open type. Respiration takes place through gills. Excretory system is the proboscis gland. So in proboscis, the proboscis glands are present that helps in the excretion. Sexes are separate, that is male and female are different. Fertilization is external. Sperms and eggs are released into environment. Sperms and eggs are released into the environment, right? And fertilization takes place externally. Development is indirect, that is involved a larval stage. Right? So these are the basic characteristics of the phylum Hemichordates. So this is the reproduction. You can see that upon fragmentation, it may undergo regeneration. So the fragment may undergo regeneration, resulting in the development of the complete organism. Or otherwise, if I talk about the sexual reproduction, then the fertilized egg, which is fertilized externally, undergoes development. After the gastrula stage, the Tornaria larva is formed. So this might be asked, what is the larva of Hemichordata called? It is the Tornaria larva. So the larva is formed, which converts into the juvenile, which is the young form, and then ultimately develops into the adult with the reproductive structures. Complete reproductive system developed. Fine. So the larva, you may be asked the larval stage, which is the Tornaria larva. This is just a schematic longitudinal section of an adult enteropenist hemichordate. Internal anatomy of proboscis has been shown. Proboscis is the prosome, collar is the mesosome, which is the middle part, and the trunk is the metasome. So here you can see here in the proboscis, you have the kidney, which is the glomerulus here, and you have proboscis gland that helps in the excretion. The heart is located here in the near the collar region and at the end of the proboscis. So you can say that the heart is located near the proboscis pore. Then they have a collar nerve cord. Gill slits are present just like the chordates, but they lack the anal tail. So the anal tail is absent. This is one of the characteristics of chordate that we will see in the next class. But for now, you need to remember that the anal tail is absent, which is present in most of the chordates, and therefore they are not placed under the chordates. They are placed under the hemichordates. Also, the notochord is not present. Right? So you have proboscis, which is the prosome, collar, which is the mesosome, and the anterior part of the trunk, which is the metasome. Examples of this phylum includes Balanoglossus and Psychoglossus. So this you need to remember. So most of the important things about this phylum is that the body is divided into three parts, which is the proboscis, collar and trunk. Circulatory system is of open type, right? They have excretory organs present. They are similar to chordates in the sense that they have gill slits, right? So these are certain characteristics of this phyla, which is the phylum Hemichordata. So Hemichordata is described in very short in NCERT. So this is all about the phylum Hemichordata. Yeah, one more thing that I mentioned here is that about the indirect development in the hemichordates. So the larval stage is the Tornaria larva, which is formed after the gastrula stage. This Tornaria larva developed into the juvenile, which is the young, which develops into an adult. With this, we finish with the non-chordates or the non-chordates that are present that are placed under the phylum, under the different phylums under the kingdom Animalia. So now, since we are ending with this non-chordate part, it is really important to just recapitulate all the points quickly about each and every phyla. So for this, I have placed certain multiple choice questions that will allow us to revisit those parts again, which are very important, and highlight some of the important characteristics of a particular file. So which of the phyla does not possess a true body cavity? That is, it is asking about the phyla which are pseudocoelomates. That is, they have a false body cavity. So we know that arthropods are the ones which are true coelomates, mollusks are the ones which are true coelomates, poriferans are acoelomates, right? And nematodes are the pseudocoelomates. Nematodes are also the coelomates. So does not possess a true body cavity. The answer is poriferans, which are acoelomates. Or if they might have given the option of platyhelminthes, you might have ticked that also because they are pseudocoelomates. Next is the phylum arthropod is characterized by the presence of. So we know that the basic characteristic or the most important characteristic of the phylum arthropod is the presence of jointed appendages. That is why the phylum Arthropoda is named. Arthro means joint. Arthro word is derived from joint, and poda word is derived from appendages. So they have jointed appendages. So this is about the phylum Arthropod. So the correct answer is jointed appendages. The next is, which invertebrate phylum includes animals with a water vascular system and a tube feet? So the options are annelids. So in this, the water vascular system is not present. The next option is echinodermata. This we have learned today only. The water vascular system and the tube feet is present in the organisms of phylum Echinodermata, and it is unique to the phylum Echinodermata. The next question is, in which of the phylum two organism possess a chitinous exoskeleton? So you know that the options are A, mollusk, second annelids, the third one is porifera, and fourth one is arthropoda. We know that in arthropods, we have chitinous exoskeleton and jointed appendages that have the chitinous exoskeleton. In the arthropods is one of the reasons for their survivability also, right? As it provides protection. The next is, animals belonging to the phylum nematodes are characterized by pseudocoelom, segmented body, radial symmetry, bilateral symmetry. So what symmetry do they have? They are not pseudocoeloms. Pseudocoelomates are platyhelminthes. They are not segmented. They do not have metameric segmentation, or they do not have any segmented body. Or what kind of symmetry they have? So whether they have radial symmetry or bilateral symmetry. So they have bilateral symmetry. So nematodes, which are the roundworms, right? So basically they have the bilateral symmetry. Next is, which invertebrate phylum includes animals with a soft body and a muscular foot? So the soft body and a muscular foot is a characteristic of the phylum mollusk. Soft-bodied animals. So the name itself suggests soft-bodied. So the answer is mollusca. Platyhelminthes are the flatworms. Nematodes are the flatworms. Nematodes are the roundworms. Cnidarians are the coelenterates. So the soft body and the muscular foot is the characteristic of the phylum mollusk. The next question is the phylum Porifera. So the phylum Porifera is also known as, we know that the phylum Porifera is known as sponges. Flatworms is Platyhelminthes. Roundworms is Nematohelminthes or nematodes. And segmented worms are annelids. So annelids are segmented worms. So the correct answer is option A, sponges. The next question is, animals in the phylum Cnidaria possess. So we know that the important characteristics of the animals is the presence of tentacles with the stinging cells. Right? So tentacles, water vascular system, for example, is a part of echinodermata. Jointed appendages is a part of uh, jointed appendages is a part of arthropoda. Calcareous shell is also present in echinoderms. They have calcareous PYQs, which are known as ossicles. So cnidarians possess tentacles with stinging cells that helps in capturing the food and also in the defense process. The next is which an invertebrate phylum includes animals with a flat ribbon-like body and bilateral symmetry. So annelids includes the organisms that have bilateral symmetry, but it does not have flat ribbon-like body. Platyhelminthes are the flat forms. That includes animals which with a flat ribbon-like body. So the correct answer is platyhelminthes, option number B. Next question is the presence of a segmented body is a characteristic of which phylum? So the segmented body is present in annelids. Annelids, we know that annula means ring, right? So annelids have ring-like structure, that is, they have the different segments in their body. This is the correct answer will be annelids. The next question is animals in the phylum Mollusca typically possess either a radula, water vascular system, segmented body, or pseudocoelom. So no, they are actually the coelomates. They do not have segmented body. They do not have water vascular system, but they have a radula for gasping the food. The next is which invertebrate phylum animal includes animals with a fluid-filled cavity between the gut and the body wall. So in this, the cavity is filled with fluid. So we know about the platyhelminthes, in which the fluid-filled cavity is present, which is the platyhelminthes, and that is why they are pseudocoelomates. They are acoelomates. They are coelomates. The next is the phylum Echinodermata. So the phylum Echinodermata is characterized by a spiny exoskeleton. Jointed appendages is the characteristics of phylum Arthropod. Notochord is the characteristic of phylum Chordates that we will see later. Segmentation is mainly the characteristic of phylum Annelids. In some arthropods, segmentation is present, but in echinoderms, spiny exoskeleton is present that contains spines. Right? The next is the animals in the phylum Cnidaria exhibit what type of symmetry? So the radial symmetry, bilaterals, asymmetry. Asymmetry is mostly the poriferans. Pentaradial symmetry is the characteristics of echinoderms. Bilateral symmetry is the characteristics of the organisms from platyhelminthes to echinoderms. And radial symmetry is present in Cnidaria and coelentrates. Right? So you need to remember all these things by heart, and it should be on your tips that what is the symmetry, what type of symmetry is exhibited by the animals of which phyla, whether they are coelomates or acoelomates, what is the most important particular characteristic of each phyla. For example, if I talk about echinoderms, for example, so they have water vascular system, fine. If I talk about arthropods, it should immediately come to my mind that they have jointed appendages. If I talk about any soft-bodied animal, mollusk should immediately come to my mind. So this is how you have to remember each and every animal belonging to any phyla by heart. So they have animals in the phylum Cnidaria have which type of symmetry? So they have radial symmetry. The next question is, which phylum includes animals with a tough protective outer covering, which is the cuticle? So the cuticle is the outer covering which is present in the animals of the phylum Arthropod. We know that cuticle is so it is a chitinous exoskeleton, and this outer covering is called as the cuticle. This cuticle helps in the prevention and in prevention from the damage, and therefore this is the reason why these organisms survive even in the harsh conditions also. Right? So they have a protective outer covering called the cuticle, which is present in the phylum organisms of phylum Arthropod. So with this, we ended up with the different phyla that includes all the non-chordates. From the next class, we will start learning about the chordate animals. So from the next session, we will be learning about the chordates. With this, I would like to end today's session. And with this, we will finish all the non-chordates. For example, poriferans, platyhelminthes, eschelminthes, coelentrates, ctenophores, annelids, arthropods, mollusk, echinodermata, and hemichordata. I'll just quickly go once before ending the session to this chart. So we have finished all these poriferans, coelentrates, ctenophore, platyhelminthes, eschelminthes, annelids, arthropods, mollusk, echinodermata, hemichordata. In the next session, we will be learning about chordates, that what are the important characteristics of chordates and how these chordates are further divided. So we will learn about the chordates from the next session. Thank you for attending.